The same year that our son, Jack, came into the world was the exact same year that my wife, Caroline, was deep in the middle of a fling with her boyfriend. It was at the party we threw to celebrate Jack being 100 days old that she decided to transfer all the stock shares she owned into our son's name. She told me she knew she had messed up and treated me poorly. She claimed this was her way of making it up to me and my father. She said she was leaving the money for the child and me, because she planned on giving all her heart and love to him. Her boyfriend, a guy named Toby, who was trailing right behind her, chimed in with a sour look on his face. He asked me, "So what if I got a pile of cash, Mr. Sterling?" He said he might not have a dime to his name, but he was the one who got the love. Before I could even open my mouth to respond, Caroline stepped in front of him, her face tight and anxious, defending him. Much later, when Caroline wanted to come back to the family, she knelt in the courtyard the entire night, begging. She said she was wrong and asked if we could just have a good life together from now on. I laughed so hard my eyes turned red. I asked her what on earth made her think I would ever be willing to do that. Love is only worth something when it's real, and hers was broken beyond repair. Before the party for Jack officially kicked off, our nanny brought him downstairs. My mother-in-law grabbed him immediately and refused to let go. My in-laws have always been very private, low-key people, but for Jack's party, they had been getting ready for months, sending out invites to friends and business partners from all over the place way in advance. After 5 years, my in-laws were completely obsessed with their new grandson. Once they had him in their arms, they just couldn't bear to put him down. I had just come downstairs myself when I saw Caroline's car pull into the driveway. She came in and wanted to hold the baby, but my mother-in-law stopped her cold. The first time Caroline held our son, she had carelessly dropped him right onto the floor. There wasn't a single shred of guilt in her words or her tone when it happened. It was infuriating. Caroline looked away, avoiding her mother's eyes, and walked over to me, her voice calm. She told me, "James, let's go upstairs and talk. There are a few documents I want you to see." I needed to go upstairs anyway to get changed, so I didn't stop her. Today was Jack's big day, and I didn't want to cause a scene or argue with anyone. A whole line of people followed behind Caroline. They all came upstairs with us. Carolyn had a team of lawyers waiting in the banquet hall on the 3rd floor. We went to our bedroom on the 2nd floor first. Standing at the mirror, I calmly put on the watch I was planning to wear to greet our guests. Carolyn stood by the sofa, with a lazy look on her face, trying to make small talk. She told me the outfit looked great on me. The clasp on the watch wouldn't click shut, and I was getting frustrated. I shot her a look and told her to shut up. I told her I didn't want to hear a single comment from her about me. Caroline smirked and said, "Fine, if it makes me unhappy, she won't say anything." She muttered that I couldn't even take a compliment, and that there were people lining up outside waiting for her to praise them. She said if it weren't for the kid, she wouldn't put up with my attitude, because the person who dares to give her a sour face hasn't been born yet. After finally getting the watch secured, I picked out a pair of nice cufflinks. I could see Caroline's reflection in the mirror. For a second, our eyes met. Caroline was wearing a gown I had custom made for her last year. She was a good-looking woman, but after having the baby, she seemed a little puffy and out of shape. She was only 39, but I didn't understand why she was aging so fast. In fact, she seemed to have less energy than her own mother. You could tell she had been soaking in a life of pure indulgence for years. She hadn't worked a single day in a decade and paid absolutely no attention to the family business. It was clear she just enjoyed this lazy lifestyle. Watching her, I couldn't help but let out a cold, short laugh. Carolyn's favorite boyfriend, Toby, had self-published a book praising his muse as the constant center of attention at every party, effortlessly charming, with every move showing the grace of an old money heiress. He used all this flowery language to describe Caroline's beauty and wealth, writing that she had the aura of a high society darling mixed with the innocence of a young girl, making her the object of affection for countless rich bachelors. After reading that book, I almost burst out laughing. 39 years old, and he's calling her a young girl? It was beyond ridiculous. But I couldn't deny that Toby had played his cards well. That romantic biography, more than half of which was obviously written by AI, cemented his place in Caroline's heart. For him, Caroline had even dismissed all her other male companions. How could you not call that exclusive devotion? When I finished adjusting my clothes and turned around, Caroline's eyes were glued to my hand. She said, "You, James Sterling, you actually took off your ring?" I followed her gaze to the ring finger on my left hand. I asked her why I should wear it. Caroline lowered her head, her expression looking a bit angry. She said, "As long as we aren't divorced, I am her husband and the future man of the Sterling family." She asked how I dared to disrespect her like this. She told me to take a good look at myself in the mirror, saying I was like a completely different person. I had more important things to deal with, so I didn't get into a fight with her. After venting for a while, she finally calmed down and handed me a file. She told me to take a look at it, saying she planned to transfer all the shares in her name to Jack. I calmly took the document. Caroline wasn't lying. Once this document in her hand took effect, Jack would own an additional 10% of the Sterling Group's shares. The Sterlings were one of the most prominent families in New York. Even though it was only 10%, it was by no means a small amount of money. It was enough for one person to live lavishly for 10 lifetimes and still not spend it all. Adding the 5% my father-in-law had transferred to Jack on the day he was born, that made 15%. By the time Jack turned 18, he could become a major shareholder with that 15% stake. And until he came of age, everything in his name would be under my control. Caroline said, "James," her tone suddenly serious, "I know I've let you and our son down." She said this was a little something to make up for it. Fearing I might not accept, she added that this was for me and the child. She told me not to turn my nose up at money and to accept it for Jack's sake. I looked up at Caroline. Just a moment ago, she was having a meltdown. How did she suddenly learn to speak like a normal person? When someone is this nice out of the blue, they're usually up to something. But for money, for the future of my 2 children, I would do anything. I wouldn't argue with her again until the contract was officially signed. After I poured her a cup of tea, Caroline seemed to be in a much better mood. She said, "That's more like it, James." She said as long as I was gentle, like I used to be, she wouldn't divorce me. She said I could relax and continue being Mr. Sterling. She said she just gave her love to Toby, but she would still come home. I fought the urge to vomit and remained silent. In Caroline's perpetually narcissistic view, she took my silence as consent. She told me I knew her personality wasn't suited for business. She said everyone in that world is so fake, including her own parents. She claimed to be a passionate person who's all about being genuine, and she just can't connect with them. She said her mom isn't too happy with her, so she probably won't hand over the family business anytime soon. That's why she only has this many shares. She told me not to think it's too little. She mentioned that when our daughter Lily was born, her mom transferred 12% of the shares to Lily's name and set aside a fixed amount of gold for her in a bank. Lily was only a month old, and she already had more to her name than Caroline did as her mother. So Caroline didn't see the point in adding more to the pile. The more Caroline talked like a rational person, the more I started to find her tolerable. She said now it finally came in handy. She said everything she owned was now for me and our son. Carolyn gave a phony smile and started praising herself. She said she might not be a faithful wife, but she was definitely a good mother. She asked if I could argue with that. Smoking in our daughter's room? Dozing off? While holding our son? And Caroline still had the nerve to say that. I really wanted to pour that hot tea over her head. But for the money, I held back. I told her yes, she was a wonderful mother. I said she had both kids in her heart, and I couldn't deny that I'd seen all her efforts. I feigned a sigh. I said it's just that we weren't meant to be, but let's not let it affect the children. I told her Jack and Lily both love her very much as their mother. A few words of praise were enough to make Caroline beam. The smile on her face grew wider. Caroline was right about one thing. Money is innocent. No one should have a problem with money. For the money and for my children, I would make sure to get my hands on every last one of her shares. I told her after the party to come with me to the 3rd floor to sign the papers with the lawyers. Once it's notarized, the documents will be official. I told her, let's go now. I said patiently that she was a busy person with a lot of friends. I said so many people want to see her, and I don't want to hold her up from her important business. Carolyn agreed quickly. She was 39 this year. By all rights, she should be at the peak of her career and full of ambition. But in reality, she was a complete waste of space. 15 years ago, Caroline was beautiful and elegant. One look at her and you knew she must have grown up in a life of privilege. That sense of ease about her was something you couldn't fake. She was nothing like me, unloved by my family, and covered in thorns. Back then, to be honest, Caroline was an excellent marriage prospect. She was one of a kind in our circle, not one of those spoiled heiresses who squandered their family fortunes, nor one of those hyper-responsible second-generation heirs bent on taking their family to the next level. Though she loved to brag, had no grand ambitions, and disliked hard work, her character was at least not fundamentally flawed. She loved cats and dogs. She would set aside time every year to visit orphanages and spend time with children who had no families. Back then, I was too young and thought she was a truly good person. It was only in recent years that I found out it was all a show to build a good reputation in our circle. I blame myself for being too young then, for mistaking a cheap imitation for the real thing. For the first 5 years of our marriage, Caroline was for the most part a good wife and mother. She loved to cook and would wait for my feedback and praise. She knew all my preferences, remembered my birthday and our wedding anniversary. She also adored children. After our daughter Lily was born, Caroline said she would definitely be a great wife and mother. And she was. She was considerate to me in every way and doted on our child. She savored every moment of family time. Even when Lily went through her terrible twos, Caroline never said a harsh word to her. 6 years into our marriage, countless people said that even though it was an arranged marriage, my wife was a gentle and beautiful lady from a prestigious family without a trace of temper or arrogance, and none of the bad habits of other spoiled heiresses. Moreover, her looks and figure could rival a movie star's. No matter how you looked at it, I, the one from a slightly less prominent family, was the one who had lucked out. A friend once said to me with conviction that when you're choosing a partner, don't pick someone who is good to you only because they love you. Pick someone who is just a good person by nature. That way, even if the love fades, you won't end up hurting each other. In her eyes, Caroline was that kind of person. At the time, I didn't pay much attention to my friend's casual remark. But looking back now, both my friend and I were blind. Caroline liked children because she could play the role of the doting mother. With more than a dozen nannies around Lily, there was no need for her to worry about any of the actual caregiving. All she had to do was play with the child, so of course she had no reason to dislike it. As for her love of cooking, it was simply a hobby. And she loved being praised. Looking closely, I noticed a few new fine lines around Caroline's eyes. Time is cruel, always finding ways to leave its mark on a person's face. But Caroline was too proud. She never bothered with skincare, never wore sunscreen, all under the guise that substance is more important than appearance. So whenever we attended important events together, the media would always joke that Caroline looked a decade older than me. Because of that, Caroline shut down 3 tabloids in a fit of rage. It became another joke in high society. Ms. Sterling, Mr. Sterling, if there are no issues, you may sign this share transfer agreement. I had no objections. I took the document and pen, and without a moment's hesitation, signed my name. The 10% stake was now finally my son's. I told her politely that when Jack is old enough to understand, he will definitely be a good, dutiful son to her. Unexpectedly, Caroline took it seriously. She said of course he will. She said I wouldn't find a more reasonable and generous mother in the whole world. She was always like this, with no real attachment to money. She was forever free, forever gentle, forever loving. She could be good to someone, but she could also retract that love at any moment and give it to someone else. People like her who love so freely are the downfall of people like me who have learned to feel nothing. Caroline handed me the signed documents. She told me I should check them again. My gaze fell on Caroline's slightly weary face. Finally, I could stop pretending. Without her shares, what use did Caroline have anymore? Downstairs, my praise must have sparked a flicker of maternal love because Caroline was searching everywhere for our son. She spotted my mother-in-law playing with Jack and asked again to hold him. Seeing that I didn't object, my mother-in-law finally handed the baby to Caroline. Caroline awkwardly adjusted her posture. Our son was not happy in her arms. She hadn't held a baby in a long time and had forgotten the knack for it. Jack struggled in Caroline's arms, twisting and turning, on the verge of tears. Caroline was at a loss and looked to her mother for help. My mother-in-law eventually took the baby back. Caroline was a little displeased. She asked why he was like this. She said she was his mother, so why wasn't he warming up to her? Since he was born, she had held him exactly once, and she dropped him. Why on earth should he like a mother like her? My mother-in-law had grown increasingly dissatisfied with Caroline over the years. It was as if there had been a genetic mutation. How could such principled parents have produced a train wreck like Caroline? Caroline didn't talk back to her mother. Instead, she pulled me aside. She asked how her mom could treat her like this. She said she's her daughter, but her mom is never satisfied with her. And Jack, she said, was so disappointing. She claimed she remembered Lily being so well-behaved and sensible when she was little, and asked why Jack couldn't learn from his sister. I couldn't help but glance at Caroline. Expecting emotional validation from a baby this small, she was truly one of a kind. When she saw I wasn't responding, Caroline's face immediately soured. She was always like this. A professional actor couldn't change expressions as fast as she could. Just then, Lily came down from upstairs, and Caroline immediately went over to her. She asked Lily if she had missed Mommy lately, noting the last time she saw her was a year ago. Lily was not exaggerating in the slightest. Caroline told her that Mommy is the face of the Sterling family and has to go to a lot of social events. She walked closer and said Lily was so tall now, asking to let Mommy have a look. She coaxed her gently, saying in a little while Mommy would introduce her to an uncle. She asked Lily if she liked having a little brother, mentioning the uncle outside already has a little boy. She said Mommy can bring him home for Lily to play with later. I interrupted her and told her to cut it out. I asked why she would say something like that in front of a child. Caroline fell silent. Lily looked up at Caroline and asked if she was talking about her illegitimate son. Caroline was overjoyed and said yes, but he's also Lily's little brother. She said when she brings him over, Lily has to be nice and not bully him. A small smirk touched the corner of Lily's lips. She ran to her grandfather, feigning innocence. She asked Grandpa if he was going to abandon her. She said Mom told her she's going to have an illegitimate son, and Lily has to give way to her little brother. She promised she wouldn't bully her brother and begged Grandpa not to kick her out. My father-in-law shot a look at Caroline. The expression on Caroline's face was absolutely priceless. She stammered, calling Lily a little brat, asking if she hadn't been good to her, and asking how she could tattle like that. My father-in-law told her to get out, his tone impatient. He said Caroline had really outdone herself saying things like that to a child. After getting a lecture in the third-floor study, Caroline refused to leave. She dragged me back to our room and spoke in a soothing tone. She said, "James, you must have figured out why I transferred my shares to Jack." She said she was trying to show me goodwill. She asked if I couldn't see that she wanted me to put in a good word for Toby with Mom and Dad. She told me I couldn't just take the money and not do my part. She complained that Mom finds fault with her every day and has ordered her to break things off with Toby completely. But she doesn't want to. She said she just wants a home here, and a home outside, asking why that is so hard. She asked how her living her life with Toby on the side bothered any of us. She claimed she had already shown so much sincerity and asked what I was still unhappy about. She said she may have given him her love, but she left the money for me and the kids, calling it perfectly fair. I let out a soft laugh but didn't respond. It was too late. Caroline was saying all this far too late. I already had the money. Whether the favor got done or not, what did it matter? A Caroline with no leverage was worthless. She had no chips left to negotiate with me. I entered the main hall for the party. 12-year-old Lily was by my side, looking at me with a serious expression. She told me, "Dad, I won't let anyone make you sad." A wave of guilt washed over me. Lily had said the same thing 6 months ago. Even though she was young, she had already realized her mother didn't love her. But she still yearned for a mother's love. Parents may not inherently love their children, but children will always love their parents. Lily waited in the hospital for a full day and night. By the time her fever broke, Caroline still hadn't shown up. In the 3 minutes I was out of the room to get something, she had secretly unlocked my phone. She opened the trending topics on social media, and there it was. A scandalous headline about Caroline. The paparazzi had revealed that Caroline had forced a rising young star to break up with his girlfriend, paying him a hefty sum as compensation. Lily looked up at me. Her lips were white from the high fever. She asked if Mom has other kids besides her and Jack. She asked why, asking if it was because she wasn't good enough. I didn't answer. But in her heart, she already knew the answer. As I was busy checking every last detail of the party setup, a slick voice cut through the air. I turned to see Toby standing at the entrance of the hall. Before I could even ask him where he got the nerve to show up at the family estate, Toby strode toward me in his handmade leather shoes, completely ignoring my glare. His well-tailored suit outlined his tall frame, and he looked radiant. He offered his congratulations, Mr. Sterling. I stood there looking at his slightly arrogant smile and didn't respond. Toby decided to press on, his eyes darting back and forth between Caroline and me. He said Caroline prepared the share transfer agreement a while ago. He mentioned she said she was leaving all her shares to me and the kids. He claimed to be so jealous, abruptly having such a massive stake. But Toby's tone shifted, his eyes filled with envy. He said some people are just destined to live out their days with only money for company. As for love, they won't get a single drop. He called it truly pathetic. Looking at the jealousy he couldn't hide beneath his handsome face, I found it almost laughable. After all this time, he was still the same. He never learned restraint, never learned when to quit while he was ahead. I smiled, unfazed. I glanced at Toby, meeting his eyes. I told him true love conquers all, and said I hope he keeps telling himself that. Toby's face instantly turned ugly. He shot me a resentful look, then turned his frustration on Caroline. Caroline stepped between us, trying to smooth things over. She told me that's enough, claiming Toby just wanted to come and offer his congratulations. She said he meant no harm and isn't great with words, so I shouldn't take it to heart. She asked why a grown man like me was bickering with a young guy, saying it makes me look classless. I told her today is our son's 100-day party and warned her not to make me slap her in a place like this. I looked at Caroline, my nails digging into my palms. Caroline looked annoyed and asked why I was so angry. She said she was just telling the truth. She asked if I thought she would have cheated if I were as innocent and kind as he is. With a sharp crack, I slapped Caroline across the face. I told her I didn't want to get physical, but she just had to push me. That evening, after the party was completely over, Caroline still hadn't left. When I'd hit her, I'd dealt with her little boyfriend at the same time. She had been fuming all afternoon. She told me to apologize to Toby, asking if I didn't hear her. I had no desire to get entangled with her and turned to leave. But Toby blocked my path. He told me if I was really that upset, he would apologize to me. His tone was dripping with insinuation. He said he can say he's sorry, but I need to learn to accept reality. He said no one in this world loves another person forever. He asked why Carolyn and I can't just part amicably, claiming she stopped loving me a long time ago. He asked why I can't just divorce her. Toby lifted his head with a proud look. In the next instant, he was hit with a slap from my mother-in-law. Seeing my mother-in-law approach, Carolyn called out to her mom, asking how she could do that. In a flash, Caroline was slapped too. My mother-in-law pointed a finger at her, trembling with rage. She asked Caroline if she had the nerve to ask why. She told her to take a look at the mess she'd made. She said since Caroline was a child, her father and she taught her step by step how to be a person, how to conduct herself. She asked if this is how she behaves as a wife. Carolyn whispered, trying to maintain some dignity, saying this is between her and me, asking her to leave us to it. She asked if for someone of her status they really expect her to only love one person her whole life. She said Toby loves her, which means she's desirable. My mother-in-law looked shocked. She asked how Caroline can be so brazenly shameless and how she ended up with a daughter like her. She reminded her today is her son's 100-day party, an event a person only has once in their life. Everyone has been happily preparing for this day for so long, and she just had to come back, bring that man with her, and let him spout all this nonsense. She asked if she is fit to be a wife or a mother. Toby started to speak, but my mother-in-law shot him a cold glare. She told him to shut his mouth. She asked if he has any right to speak here, who let him in, and if he is worthy of being here today. She asked if he thinks he's so special because he's young. She asked if being young gives him the right to be a homewrecker or show up at someone else's family event and say whatever garbage comes to his mind. She asked what on earth his parents taught him to make him so utterly shameless. The color drained from Toby's face. My mother-in-law had always been a refined lady, well known in our circles for her good temper. But now she was tearing away all pretense, laying everything bare. It was crystal clear and cut straight to the bone. Toby stopped arguing with her and turned to me instead. He asked me to please talk to my mother-in-law. He said he knew his actions were inappropriate, but he never meant to make me angry. I met Toby's gaze and spoke calmly. I told him if he knows he speaks inappropriately, then he should learn to keep his mouth shut and stop embarrassing himself over and over again. A flash of resentment crossed Toby's eyes before he lowered his head. With my mother-in-law's approval, I had my staff escort Toby and Caroline out. At the main gate of the estate, I asked with utmost sincerity why Caroline couldn't have just died in the year I loved her most. That way, she never would have become this hideous version of herself. I was only 10 when I first met Caroline. Back then, she was 3 years older, but much taller than me. After my mother died, my father quickly remarried and paid less and less attention to me. He used to love me so much. He loved my mother so much, too. But the shelf life of love is so short. The father who once held me in the palm of his hand, who watched with my mother as I learned to walk, who held my hand every day to take me to kindergarten, soon became a different person. After my mother died in a car accident, my father held me and cried in the hospital corridor. He comforted me over and over, saying that even though my mother was gone, he would always love and protect me. At that moment, I was absolutely certain that he loved me, that he truly cared for me. But 3 years later, the young woman who had killed my mother became my stepmother. For me, that moment was like a bolt from the blue. The young woman who killed my mother was named Sherry. At my mother's memorial service, she knelt before my father, her voice choked with sobs on the verge of collapse. She apologized, saying she shouldn't have been on her phone while driving, shouldn't have run the red light. She begged him not to press charges because she didn't want to go to jail, saying she was still young. My father's eyes were filled with hatred. He had someone drag Sherry away. But later, he fell in love with her. How ridiculous. On the path to seeking justice for my mother, he fell in love with the killer in the 3rd year after losing my mother. I completely lost my father. I was no longer his only son. He didn't even treat me like a son anymore. The first time my stepmother hit me, I was 8. My father felt a pang of guilt, but he didn't blame her. Instead, he had a talk with me that night. He told me I was the older brother and needed to learn to give in to my little brother. He said he's still little and asked how I could argue with him. That day, I, who had always been strong, was so wronged I could barely speak. I told Dad he's right. He's only 7, but I'm only 9. I asked why I have to be the one to give in. I said he's the one who ripped up my homework and scratched my face, and all I did was ask him to give my notebook back. I asked why I was the one who got hit in the end. My father didn't give me an answer. He was unwilling to admit that his heart had already strayed. But that was the truth. Even if I couldn't accept it, most of the time I just had to. When I was 10, I was wandering in a park after school when I saw a man holding a child's hand walking toward me. He asked if I was James Sterling. He said he was my mom's best friend when they were little. The man patted my head and reminded me that when I was little, my parents took me abroad to stay at his house. Just as I was answering his questions, my stepmother's son ran out. He yanked my hair as he ran past, asking why I was hanging around there instead of going home. He teased me about getting kidnapped or having my homework ripped up again. My stepbrother circled me. The second time he made a face at me, the girl standing next to the man grabbed him by the collar. She asked if this is how his parents taught him, to rip up someone's homework and act proud of it. That was the first time she and I looked at each other face to face. Seeing my stepbrother dangling in her grip, I felt a wave of sweet relief. It was the first time since my mother died that someone had stood up for me. In the long years that followed, I always remembered that scene. A person starved for love will remember a casual act of kindness for a long, long time. I was that kind of person. After being kicked out of the house, Caroline vanished from New York for a solid week, as if she'd evaporated. In a small corner of the financial papers, a prominent headline announced the good news of old Mr. Sterling's electronics subsidiary about to have its IPO. Meanwhile, in the entertainment section, an equally glaring headline screamed, "Sterling heiress allegedly dumped, spotted on secret getaway to Miami with new flame," accompanied by a blurry photo. On the beach under a sun umbrella, a young man in swim trunks leaned intimately over a woman on a lounge chair, the two of them kissing freely. It was Caroline and Toby. My in-laws took turns calling Caroline, but their numbers had been blocked. Caroline was always like this. She had blocked everyone in the Sterling household at one point or another. At the end of the month, just as I'd finished a major acquisition project, I received a sudden call from Lily's homeroom teacher. Her voice was frantic, her tone distorted with the sounds of a chaotic argument in the background. She said Ms. Sterling and a Mr. Toby were at the school. They said they wanted to take Lily to the amusement park. Lily refused to go, and an argument broke out. The situation was getting out of control. I could hear the sounds of a struggle over the phone. Lily was yelling to let go of her, saying she didn't want to go with them, she didn't know him, and Carolyn wasn't her mom. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by a fist. I was too furious to speak. I told the teacher to please try to stop her, and that I was on my way right now. When I arrived at the school, a small crowd had already gathered in the parking lot, pointing and staring. The principal and several school administrators stood at the entrance, looking like they were facing a major crisis. From a distance, I could hear sharp crying and the angry, impatient voice of a woman. Lily had never been one to cry, and now she was being pushed to this. I hurried through the crowd. Carolyn was yelling at Lily to get in the car, saying she's her mother and asking why she was being so distant. She said she just wanted to take her out to have some fun. Toby was trying to mediate with a fake, gentle tone, telling Caroline not to be so hard on a kid, and coaxing Lily to say hi to Uncle, promising to buy her the newest doll set. With a sharp crack, Caroline was stunned by a slap from her father. She stared at us in disbelief. She asked what the big deal was, saying she just wanted to take Lily out to play. Lily scrambled toward me, half running, half falling. She cried out, "Dad!" her voice thick with tears. Her face was soaked. Her arm was bright red from being grabbed, with scratch marks on it. I pulled my daughter behind me, shielding her tightly, and looked at Caroline and Toby. I asked Caroline what she thought she was doing. Being publicly confronted by a group of people, Caroline flew into a rage. She asked what's wrong with taking her own daughter out for a bit, saying it's her right. She asked what right I have to interfere. She pointed at Lily behind me and told me to look at what I've taught her, yelling at her elders with no manners. She said she's completely disgraced the Sterling family name. She grew more agitated as she spoke. Toby quickly tried to pull her arm, telling her she was scaring the child. He turned to me, his voice feigning sincerity, asking me not to misunderstand Caroline. He said he just saw that Lily didn't seem to like him very much, so he wanted to buy her a gift to get closer to her. I swung my hand back and slapped him hard across his handsome face. Toby staggered back a step, the gift box dropping from his hand with a dull thud. A clear handprint instantly rose on his cheek. He shrieked, asking if I dared to hit him. I told him I'm the one who hit him. I said whether my daughter likes him or not has nothing to do with him. I asked who the hell he thinks he is, and if he is even worthy of trying to influence her. My aggressive advance made Toby shrink back. His eyes welled up and he turned to grab Caroline's arm, sobbing her name. Caroline's face darkened completely. She shielded Toby behind her, standing like a wall in front of me, glaring. She told me not to go too far and to take it up with her if I have a problem. Caroline was slapped again, this time by her father. He told her even a vicious tiger won't harm its own young. He said she brought this worthless piece of trash here to humiliate her own daughter in public, and asked if she even had a heart. Caroline's cheek twitched, but she couldn't find a single word to retort. The school's security footage was the final straw. The video clearly showed Caroline and 2 bodyguards forcibly dragging Lily toward a car. Caroline's sharp rebukes, Toby's attempts to get close to the child, and Lily's desperate screams were all recorded. Caroline was ordered to move out of the Sterling family home. That night, I was summoned to the study in the main house. My father-in-law sat behind a large desk, his expression somber. My mother-in-law sat beside him. Her expression softened when she saw me. Caroline had infuriated everyone today. My father-in-law began, his voice no longer thundering but filled with a deep weariness. He said they've failed me by raising such a disastrous daughter, and failed the 2 children giving them a mother like that. His gaze slowly swept over me. He said things have come to this, and they must make plans for my and the children's future. He looked at the family lawyer, Mr. Roth. Mr. Roth immediately took 2 documents from his briefcase. The covers were stamped with the gold Sterling family crest and a prominent line in English: Irrevocable Trust Agreement. It seemed my father-in-law was finally ready to give up on Caroline completely. Mr. Roth said these 2 agreements have been repeatedly reviewed. First, the shares of the Sterling Group held by Lily and Jack will effective immediately be placed into 2 separate family trusts. Until they come of age, James Sterling, as the sole designated guardian, will exercise all management and execution rights over the assets within the trusts, including but not limited to shares, dividends, profits, and their derivative interests. Second, during the existence of these trusts, any legal or financial disputes arising from Ms. Caroline Sterling's personal affairs, including debts, personal share transfers, or marital changes, shall not for any reason be used to pursue, freeze, or claim rights over the assets within these trusts. He spoke quickly and clearly, closing off any possibility of a third party getting their hands on the shares. In the American legal system, an irrevocable trust is an ironclad guarantee. My father-in-law told me to sign it. He said from now on, everything the Sterling family has is in my hands. Walking out into the courtyard, Caroline had already packed her bags, ready to run away from home and cut ties with her parents. The process had been completed without her knowledge. For me, the signed agreement was a huge relief. From now on, Caroline could no longer touch the core interests of the Sterling Group. Everything the Sterling family had now belonged to me and my children. In truth, Caroline's daily antics had long ago drained me of all affection and patience. She thought I was jealous, fighting for her attention. In reality, all I cared about was the Sterling family fortune. She could give her true love to whoever she pleased. I didn't care. For the rest of my life, I would no longer have to deal with Caroline Sterling. She could go wherever she wanted. It didn't matter how many scandals she created. They were just fodder for gossip. The internet was right. Once a person has billions, their mindset changes completely. Seeing me, Caroline wore a look of disdain. She asked if I came out to gloat. She told me not to think her parents will kick her out. She reminded me she's their only daughter, the future heiress, and told me to think about the weight of that title. She guaranteed me within a month, Mom and Dad will personally come and beg her to come back. She said she's done plenty of ridiculous things growing up and her parents have forgiven her every single time. So this time will be no different. I didn't argue with her. Now that I had the money, there was no need to indulge in petty verbal victories. Talking to someone like her was a complete waste of time. Watching Caroline's car disappear into the distance, I smiled. I promised her silently that she wasn't coming back. In this world, there is nothing I can't do. It's all just a matter of time. So just you wait. Relax. I'm my mom's only daughter. How could she possibly disown me? I was sure of it. My mom was just trying to scare me. I am a high society heiress. That is the thing I am most proud of in this life. As I said this, Howard the butler stood opposite me, cautiously trying to reason with me. He said I've really gone too far this time, and the master and madam are both very angry. Howard watched me grow up, so I know he means well. But I wasn't having it. I told Howard to go, saying he's too rigid and just doesn't get me. After what happened, everyone started criticizing me, calling me a flirt. But honestly, what did I do wrong? I just happened to find true love and wanted to divorce my husband. What's the big deal? Money in my eyes isn't important at all. All I want is true love. There are so many temptations in the world. Am I to blame? Toby brought me a glass of water, asking if I was thirsty and apologizing for putting me in this difficult position. I immediately pulled him into my arms. To me, Toby is the kindest, most gentle boy in the world. And he's definitely not after my money. That's what I admire most about him. Unlike my husband and my parents who are always talking about money. So tacky. He could never be as relaxed and carefree as I am. It makes me angry just thinking about it. Last month, my parents told me to break up with Toby immediately. To rebel against them, I secretly sent a rather important business proposal to my dad's competitor, causing him a measly billion-dollar loss. It was such a small thing. But my father flew into a rage and told me to get out. And another thing, I just dozed off while holding my son and accidentally dropped him. My mom actually slapped me. My God, I have never been so wronged in my entire life. In the afternoon, I drove my sports car back to the family estate. This time, Howard didn't even greet me when he saw me. I was furious. I am the sole heir of the Sterling family. How dare a mere butler disrespect me? I walked into the living room with Toby on my arm. He was wearing a limited edition suit and a watch I'd given him. Entering the living room, I greeted the housekeeper very politely. There's an unwritten rule in our circle of heiresses. You can be morally bankrupt, but you can't be rude. I greeted my parents and asked what they wanted to see me about. Toby sat next to me, looking a little nervous. It made my heart ache for him. My mother told me to shut up, looking at me coldly. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was incredibly intimidating. I was stunned. I was frail and sickly as a child, and it was a miracle I survived. My grandparents always spoiled me rotten and never allowed my parents to interfere. So I had never been treated like this. My mother threw a newspaper in front of me, telling me to look at the trashy headlines I've been making. She asked how I can be so shameless. I felt a little guilty, but then I remembered I was the sole Sterling heir, and that guilt quickly vanished. I held Toby's hand tightly to reassure him. I told Mom I know she likes James, and I used to like him too, but now I'm over him. I said I want a divorce. I told her I know she's prejudiced against Toby, but I'm an educated adult with the right to make my own choices. I said she can't force love. I don't understand why my parents are so stubborn. My dad said suddenly that I disgrace them. He asked if this is how I find happiness, by selling out the company and abandoning my husband and children. He said if he'd known I'd turn out like this, they would have been better off raising a pile of bricks. I was unfazed. In fact, I was starting to resent my parents. My father is a kind man, but for some reason he was always strict with me. My grandparents loved me the most and spoiled me unconditionally. I'm so glad they raised me. Otherwise, my life would have been miserable. My dad started nagging again about how James has wronged me and about the children. I couldn't be bothered to answer, so I stayed silent. To be honest, deep down I looked down on my dad a little. I didn't think he was any more capable than me. He was just a bit luckier. His indecisive personality was completely unsuited for business. But the media called him a benevolent entrepreneur. That's hilarious. He's not even in my league. If someone crossed me, I would crush them completely. My mother spoke up too, telling me to break things off with Toby immediately. Toby turned to look at me, tears streaming down his face. He apologized and said he should just leave. My parents' words finally set me off. I smashed a vase on the table. I yelled at them to stop, asking if they have to talk like this. I said Toby truly loves me. I admitted he doesn't come from a good background, but it's not like he could choose that. I said James's family background isn't that much better. I first met James during my teenage years. He was a pitiful sight. The first time we met, I saw his stepbrother bullying him and immediately stepped in. Many years later, when we were married, he told me that he had remembered me ever since that day. Back then, he loved me deeply, almost worshipped me. And I love protecting people. A few years went by like that, and I started to feel bored. I like people who are completely obedient to me, and James could never be that person. To be frank, he's actually a very outstanding man. As for me, the only reason I graduated from college abroad was because my dad donated a few buildings. After joining the Sterling Group, James quickly achieved great results. I, on the other hand, created one mess after another. The funny thing is, my dad actually fired me. In a fit of anger, I just quit. Whatever. I'll always have endless money to spend. No matter what happens, I'm the sole heir to the Sterling family. When I inherit the group, I'll dissolve the board and fire everyone who impeached me. I'll also kick James out of the company. I'm the rightful heir, but he gets all the spotlight, making me live in his shadow. It's humiliating. My eldest Lily is very smart and hardworking. At first I liked her too. She was perfect, but gradually I started to dislike her. She's just too smart. All the elders who used to fawn over me now focus all their attention on my daughter. I was about to die of anger. Everyone praised James for his parenting skills. And what about me? I was completely ignored. Even though I haven't done anything substantial for my child, she is in my heart. A mother's love is silent. My mother stood up and pointed at me, yelling for me to get out of the house. She said she doesn't have a daughter like me. I got angry too, and threw the keys to my Maybach on the table. I said, fine, I'll go. I said, I'm not like them materialistic people. I said, I don't want this insane wealth, husband, or children. I told them to give them to whoever they want and not to come begging me to come back. With that, I grabbed Toby and stormed out. My father, furious, called after me that if I dare to leave today, he'll consider himself to have no daughter. I was shocked by my father's words. So this is what father-daughter love amounts to. So shallow. I spoke word by word. I said the feeling is mutual and declared that from this day forward, I am no longer his daughter. Sitting in the Maybach, I took a sip of my drink. Toby looked at me with a worried expression, saying I was too impulsive. He asked what if they really kick me out. I wasn't concerned at all. I told Toby not to be afraid, reminding him I'm my parents' only daughter. Toby leaned into my arms, his eyes red-rimmed. He asked if I have nothing in the future. How will I be able to support him, saying he doesn't want to suffer with me? I had to laugh at Toby's pouting. He just loves to overthink things. Toby has never been a gold digger. He once told me with utter sincerity that he wasn't after my money. I believe him. I was just about to give Toby a playful kiss when someone knocked on the car window. It was the butler. I opened the door and asked what it was. Howard dangled the Maybach keys in front of me. I thought I had lost them and reached for them, thanking him. But the butler took a step back. He said, "I've misunderstood." He said the madam said that since I have decided to cut ties with the Sterling family, I am not to take anything with me, including this car. I was furious, but I couldn't lose my temper in front of Toby. I just got out of the car fuming and gave the Maybach a good kick. After returning to my villa, the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I contacted a newspaper and preemptively published a notice announcing that I had severed ties with my parents. The story quickly started trending online. That night I casually opened the comments section on a random video. Below, a mob of people was insulting me. They asked if I couldn't do anything else besides cutting ties with my rich parents. I have the confidence to do it. I'm going to live as I please. Anyway, my parents will come crawling back to me sooner or later. Someone commented that I'm not a teenager anymore and my kids are grown, asking why I'm still so impulsive. Ha! So what if I'm impulsive? A woman is a girl until the day she dies. And besides, the people insulting me may be young, but do they have the right to criticize me? They wish they were born into my family. Too bad for them they weren't so lucky. Someone heard I disowned my parents for a boy toy and called me a baller, hoping I don't regret it later. Of course, I won't regret it. The greatest hardship I've ever faced in my life is being insulted by these people. Let them talk. The nastier, the better. My parents have always been soft-hearted when it comes to me. If they see how badly I'm being attacked by netizens, they'll surely regret kicking me out, and will come to apologize to me personally.